In this age of selfie, which is technically, I think, entered the dictionary in 2013, we have a lot of self-oriented things now these days, right? We have self-help, we have self-care, we have self-medication, There's a lot of self. But at the same time, there's a lot of pain, actually, that's out there, too. And when we think about it, has all this self-focus actually made us happy? They say that the one predictor of happiness is not the size of your wallet, size of your house, how much stuff you have, number of family members, or anything like that. The greatest predictor of happiness is whether you have someone to call when you really need help. And when that number of people that don't have someone to call in the society goes up, that overall level of happiness in that society goes down. So, in this age of the me, myself, and I, how do we become more other-centered, not just self-centered? How do we ask ourselves, how can we be someone that truly knows another person and allow ourselves to feel known by others too? So I'd like to start with an exercise. You have two options. Option one is to look at someone next door to you in the eyes with your soul open for 30 seconds. Option two is lean over, take a little selfie. Okay? We're going to try this exercise now. 3, 2, 1. And I want to see if you can show kindness with your eyes. And just allow yourself to be you. I remember one time I did this, and there was a woman who came up to me afterwards, and I noticed that she was crying, or she had been crying. And I asked her, I said, gosh, are you okay? And she said, I can't remember the last time somebody looked at me in the eye for a minute. And so, maybe, just maybe, you have changed someone's life today too, by just being seen, by being known, and by allowing yourself to be seen and known. And the difficult thing actually is that we live in a city that's just known for a lot of good things. We have good food, we have good shopping, we have good education, we have good housing. But we're kind of a busy, transactional kind of place. And, wherever you go, you have this wall of mobile phones, We're taught to be suspicious of strangers and actually not kind to them. How do we stop for the one? Because the hidden cost of being transactional and just absorbed in a city like ours is that we actually become this sterile, soulless, lifeless place that only has bodies and places and things for rent. How do we become this city of good? I mean, ultimately, city of good's made up of people like you and me. And that means the things that we choose to do, the habits, the practices, and the norms that we choose to have make a huge difference. And so I want to share with you today 7 habits in the city of good. Some of you may recall the Joshua Bell experiment. The Washington Post asked him to stand in the subway, and of course, Joshua Bell has been called the virtuoso violinist. He's the head of the St. Martin's of the Fields Academy. I mean, this man plays to huge concert halls. And he went into the subway, and a social experiment was there to test, would anybody notice him? Would anybody stop? Would anybody maybe give him some money? And so they estimated maybe 10% might stop, maybe 4% would appreciate the quality, and $150 maybe within an hour. Well, 27 out of the 1,000-odd people that actually passed that day gave him some money. Out of that, only 7 stopped to listen, and $52.17 was collected. Now, what's wrong with this picture? How is it that a man whose life is celebrated and who has received so many accolades is virtually ignored? How is it that we cannot even appreciate that beauty? So habit 1 is notice beauty. It is all around us. How do we stop for the one and appreciate that one? So many years ago, I actually was working on an initiative to break the debt bondage that foreign workers actually experience when they come to foreign places like Singapore, and I interned in a hotel. And I experienced the other end of a hotel, which is really heavy duvets, cleaning up after people, bedrooms, bathrooms, sinks, toilets. And it was messy. It was very messy. And now I clean up after myself a little bit more because I realize that those places that I used are used by other people and cleaned by other people, actually, too. And I remember on my first day, I walked into the hallway, and there's a service standard which says if there's someone about 12 feet in front of you, look them in the eye and greet them. So I tried. I was like, oh, it's someone coming. Look them in the eye and greet them. And that person walked straight by me and completely ignored me. Never even acknowledged my presence. Now, the fact of the matter actually is, my family owns that hotel. And if I had met him in the lobby or in a restaurant, I think we would have had a different interaction. And there is something fundamentally wrong with that picture. That second habit is now about, for me, respecting those places and respecting people. It sounds so simple, but being known isn't about being that rich and famous person. It's about that posture of the heart, that posture that we have towards one another, by recognizing that we are that good and precious gift, and so is someone else. So I'm one of the worst culprits in the universe, when it comes to pausing and noticing things, really, because I've been told I talk too fast, I walk too fast, I'm constantly multitasking. But what I try and do now, actually on a daily basis, at least twice, which is usually when I sit down to eat, is actually stop. Notice who's around me and just give thanks. And my role model, actually, for this is my Nana. And in 5 days, she is turning 100. She is amazing. She is completely amazing. That was a 95 and that was a 99-year-old picture of her. She grew up poor, but truly rich in love. She raised chickens when she was young. But she was somebody who just really lived her life for others. Was very active with war widows in Los Angeles, where she grew up. One day I asked her, actually it was the morning of her 90th birthday, I said, Nana, what is the secret to being so amazing and vivacious? And I've asked her this since, so I know that it's consistent and true. And she said, I think I'm just a grateful person. And I thought, wow. And she said, yeah, I get up in the morning and I just say thanks. I got up. And then she said, and I'm really happy that Grandpa could just get up and go to the bathroom by himself. Isn't that kind of ridiculous? Like, what's the big deal? But actually having interacted with a lot of older people, and I've been having my parents get older, I realized that getting up and going to the bathroom by yourself is not something you should take for granted. So it is that habit of stopping and giving thanks. And truly, even though I'm not even half her age yet, I want to be half as good as her when I am. give thanks regularly. The good news is that there are more people in this city that want to make it more lovable and not just livable. And I'm glad that this is actually my job at NVPC. And that's where we have this vision that Singapore can be the city of good. And we define that as where people come together to give their best, not their scraps, but their best for others and not just themselves. How do we come together and do together what we cannot do alone? Because change doesn't just happen by yourself. And what's so important, actually, in this process of change is that we remember the stories that make up this city of good, the stories of our lives. Now, about 3 years ago, we started this project to actually tell a kind of people's history of Singapore. It wasn't about the political history or the economic history, and you've heard a lot of that in this amazing bicentennial year, but it was actually about the Singaporeans in our recent modern history who looked out for other people, about HIV counselors who would hug their patients in the 80s when doctors and nurses were quitting their jobs. It's about policemen who would look out for youth at risk and befriend them. It's about death row counselors. All of these stories are told by the prophets of our time, the filmmakers. And each of those films gives you an opportunity to click through and actually learn more, donate, volunteer, or share your voice to help support their cause. Now, that took us 3 years and 15 people and a lot of time to actually create. But guess what? Each of you also is a storyteller that storytells every day. What is your mission when you come online? Do you build up and edify and encourage and shout out and notice the beauty and give thanks for others? That's something that we can do every day. In the City of Good, the bigger scale around this too is how we engage businesses. Amazingly, it is actually we can use the tech for good actually to create a massive change. Last week, we actually announced a collaboration with a benefits aggregator, a benefits company, that was now going to donate all the unused benefits at the end of the year, actually, to charities and give people the opportunity to just say, okay, well, I didn't use it. Let's actually do something with that. And that was actually right here just in Singapore. On a bigger scale, when WeChat introduced the giving tile into their app, actually they garnered over 3 billion unique donations and over 1.4 billion yuan, the biggest single day of donations actually in China. And Taobao actually has over 1 million businesses online that are giving part of what their proceeds are to actually charities out there too. So these platforms can be amazing platforms for good. And how does this all happen? Actually, it happens because people, regular people, actually reach out and get involved and stand for something. Now, I want to tell you about Kylie and Jeremy. I met them at this cafe I was at in Rochester, Minnesota, way out there. I noticed that they had these little hearts on their name tag. I'm like, Kylie, Jeremy, And I asked them. I said, what is that all about? And Kylie said, I wear this for my grandma. And Jeremy said, well, this is my weekend job. My day job is actually scheduling at the breast cancer screening clinic. And I said, how is it that you are bringing this into your cafe at the moment? They said, well, we just thought this was something important, so we asked our boss whether we could do this. And, then we ordered these little stickers, which we now cover the tops of coffee cups with, actually too. And we use it as a point of advocacy. Kylie and Jeremy are not massive influencers. They maybe have like 100 or something, customers, or two a day. So if you have 100 customers a day, reach 100 customers. If you have 1,000, reach 1,000. If you have 1 million, reach 1 million. It doesn't really matter. It's where you start and it's what you stand for. Another habit is to stand for something. And ultimately, I think it starts at home. It starts with you. My mom had this massive stroke, and she almost died, and they told us, well, if she survives this coma, she's probably going to turn out a vegetable. And it was very hard, but she did survive. And I remember that next year, my sister, my mom, and I decided. Well, actually, my sister and I decided at the time that we were going to celebrate my mom and our birthdays by raising funds, actually, for an organization that was going to refurbish their physiotherapy room because that's so important as part of your rehabilitation. So we did that, and we thought, you know what, this is so much of a better way to celebrate your birthday, rather than like complaining you have wrinkles or whether you have more to love, or whether you're hosting the right party or whether the right people are coming or whether your kid has a nice goodie bag to go home with. Wow, what if we just rethought this whole idea of our birthdays too? And this was a sign that we actually put up as our fundraiser kind of like idea, and it was a sign that we would place at the bottom of my mom's bed, and we would just have it there so that if she ever kind of like opened her eyes, she would see it, and we would remind her actually that I am an overcomer, and yes, you are. And so when we think about it, truly the City of Good is not always about the big things. There are the spectacular and the big things, but it's actually about a lot of the small things. It's about the small actions that we can take every single day. Because ultimately, cities are not just about buildings and famous places or pastimes, but cities are about people. And it's measured by the amount of love that we actually pour into a place, the stories that we choose to tell, the habits that we keep, and the things that we decide to practice. So, in summary, may I invite you all to notice beauty, to respect our places and people, to give thanks and pay it forward, to share good stories, to stand for something, and to start at home. Thank you.